The Scarlet Letter is not such a long novel, and it's always interesting to think about the richness of the topics that it explores. It speaks about love, sin, revenge, spiritualism, religion, the witch trials. I mean, it's so rich in topics that you would think it contains over 400 pages, which does not. So this is basically where the talent of Nathaniel Hawthorne lies, in his ability to say so many things in not such a dense novel. So, having said that, I will just continue to say that the Scarlet Letter from the title is not actually only Hester Prynne's burden, but he manages to make it somehow the burden of the other three main characters, and those are Roger Chillingworth, who is Hester Prynne's husband, who has just come back to Boston, and this is the setting of the story, Boston at the end of the 17th century. Then Arthur Dimmesdale, Hester Prynne's lover, with whom she has a child, Pearl. But of course, nobody knows this since Arthur Dimmesdale is a priest. So this is the basis of the plot, and at the beginning of the novel, we see Hester Prynne coming out of the prison, and all the Puritans watching her, especially the women, as though she was some kind of a sin in flesh and body. So I will advise you to think about the meaning of the Scarlet Letter for each of these characters, because I tend to ask that at the exam. Also, do not skip the preface to the novel, which is called The Custom House, in which we have even some postmodern characteristics, because we are not sure who the narrator actually is. Is it Hawthorne? Is it Jonathan Pugh? Is it just an omniscient narrator? And how a Hester story is layered as a history told by another person as another history. So I probably said this many times, that the truth of history cannot be reached. It depends on the person who is telling that history. So in this video, I'm going to focus just briefly on certain elements that I find interesting for you to think about. And for example, in Custom House, the preface, Nathaniel Hawthorne describes how he stumbled upon the story about the Scarlet Letter, and he says that he found it in his house. I happened to place it on my breast. It seemed to me then that I experienced a sensation not altogether physical, yet almost so, as of burning heat, and as if the letter were not of red cloth, but red hot iron. I shuddered and involuntarily let it fall upon the floor. So even here you can see the supernatural element of the Scarlet Letter, which is not only a piece of red cloth, but it has the ability to actually burn you. In chapter 4, the interview, we are introduced finally, much broadly, to Chillingworth, who is identified as the smiling villain. When he says sooner or later he must needs be mine, he refers to Dimmesdale, because Chillingworth knows from the very beginning that Dimmesdale, actually he suspects, he's not so sure, that Dimmesdale is the father of Pearl. He wants to let Dimmesdale live. This is such an interesting idea, and it can be related to the essence of revenge. Namely, the idea in the novel is that once the object of your revenge vanishes, then you, as the avenger, have no reason to live. And this is the idea that Melville picks up from Hawthorne and makes Captain Ahab even more maniacal in his obsession with Moby Dick. So it is the pursuit that matters, and not the fact that you're going to kill or harm somebody who you want to exact revenge on. The smiling villain part is especially important because we can connect many ideas from the Scarlet Letter to Shakespeare. Hawthorne was a great admirer of Shakespeare. He even visited his hometown, Stratford upon Avon, and later on, Melville is going to pick up that obsession even with Shakespeare, saying that he was so sorry that he hadn't read Shakespeare before he was 30. Now, the darkness in Hawthorne's works must partly have come from Shakespeare, because Shakespeare is so pessimistic. It is the tragedies that are so good of all his works, because he knew how to paint human sorrow. So let me just show you some examples from Shakespeare's works on which Hawthorne relies here. "O villain, villain, smiling, damned villain! One may smile and be a villain." Then in Macbeth, we have this line: "There's daggers in men's smiles." Then in Richard III, we have, "Why, I can smile and murder whilst I smile." So this image of the smiling villain is actually, I think, borrowed from Shakespeare, and he makes it work in Chillingworth's character. Then pay attention to the development of Pearl. I also find this character so fascinating because it's a child. And if you are maybe a fan of horror movies or Gothic literature, you know that children can be so scary when depicted in the right way. And I cannot recall, honestly, a good horror movie or book that does not feature a child because I don't know why they're so scary. And Pearl is one such child written in that tradition. This is what is said about her. The child could not be made amenable to rules. Amenable would mean like responsive or obeying the rules. In giving her existence, a great law had been broken, and the result was a being whose elements were perhaps beautiful and brilliant, but all in disorder. So Pearl is the child of sin, and as such, she cannot be ruled herself, and she's connected to nature. She does not want to be around people at all. She hates people and humanity, but nature is her thing. So think about the ways in which Pearl is connected to her surrounding and how this scares even her mother. So her mother cannot deal with her at all. Then it says like this: "It was a look so intelligent, yet inexplicable, perverse, sometimes so malicious, but generally accompanied by a wild flow of spirits, that Hester could not help questioning at such moments whether Pearl was a human child." So here you can see that a mother can also be afraid of her own child if she cannot manage the child. And this is one such example because Pearl was described as a wild child, the child that belongs to nature. And finally, the quote that is also very important: "It was the scarlet letter in another form, the scarlet letter endowed with life." This is the description of Pearl. So this is how the scarlet letter A is not only on the bosom of Hester Prynne, she also gave birth to her own private scarlet letter. It is Pearl, actually. So Hester can throw away the scarlet letter from her chest, but she cannot get rid of the child. The child is a constant reminder of her sin, and this is why it's the scariest form of the scarlet letter. Then in chapter number 9, which is called The Leech, na srpskom je to pijavica, Chillingworth is described as such. This is a word play because the leech can also mean physician or a doctor, which Chillingworth actually is, and he poses as Dimmesdale's doctor, which was not such a good idea, but of course Dimmesdale does not know who Chillingworth is. So this is the quote: "A man burdened with a secret should especially avoid the intimacy of his physician." And this refers to Dimmesdale because he has to keep the secret because he's a priest and he had committed a mortal sin by sleeping with a woman, first and foremost, and then on top of it all with a married woman. This introduces the topic, also Shakespearean topic, of appearance versus reality. I cannot recall one play by Shakespeare that does not feature this theme. It's so prominent. Who we actually are and who we appear or seem to be when we speak to other people. So, for example, when Dimmesdale says, "I have laughed in bitterness and agony of heart at the contrast between what I seem and what I am," and I instantly hear Iago from Othello because he keeps repeating, "I am not what I am." He tells us that he's not what he is, actually. Then you have Richard III, who is, again, in the same tradition as Othello's Iago. Next, Chillingworth, it says here, had grown to exist only by this perpetual poison of the direst revenge. A mortal man, with once a human heart, has become a fiend for his especial torment. So basically, Chillingworth was maybe not such a bad guy before all this happened, but because of his thirst for revenge, he has become an obnoxious human creature. And this is where, as I said, the essence of revenge comes in when we compare Chillingworth to Captain Ahab from the novel Moby Dick, because Ahab also lives only to pursue this whale and nothing else matters. And this is what makes the novel so interesting. Uh, all characters in the end are in a way punished. Hester Prynne has been punished throughout the novel. Pearl is punished because she is a sinful child, and Dimmesdale and Chillingworth have their own punishments. Dimmesdale, as it's revealed at the end, has a letter A on his chest, and we don't know this until he takes off his shirt, and this is also a constant reminder of his previous sin. As for Chillingworth, once Dimmesdale dies, Chillingworth is also ruined. So this is why I explain the essence of revenge as something which has no essence. Basically, revenge is never good because it forces you to pursue a goal which cannot be actually satisfied. So, as I wrote here, the Avenger vanishes once the object of his revenge is ruined. It is really symbolic that at the end of Moby Dick, Captain Ahab dies, although Moby Dick still continues to live. So, the ending of Moby Dick is much harsher than this ending. Here, Dimmesdale is the one to die, but Chillingworth also dies, spiritually, if not physically. And finally, I will end this brief discussion on some of the topics from the Scarlet Letter by reading this quote. It is a curious subject of observation and inquiry whether hatred and love be not the same thing at bottom. I think this is a very important theme of the novel The Scarlet Letter, to re-examine the nature of love and hate. These two emotions are so strong that they have to be the same at bottom. You know, when you love somebody and then you are not together anymore, for example, the only way to actually be free is to become indifferent to your previous love. Usually, in a relationship or in your family, whenever there is a quarrel involved, you are angry after some big love issue, you know, and while you are angry, there will be something at least similar to hate, and this is a very strong feeling as well. And Hawthorne says that hate is as strong as love. And this is where we can also compare the dark and the sunshine in the novel. There is a whole chapter in the Scarlet Letter called The Flood of Sunshine, which you should pay attention to. So think about all these topics and try to speak with Asa about them as you read one chapter. I singled out only one chapter from the Scarlet Letter for you to read, and this is the marketplace. That's basically the beginning of the novel. But you should have time to speak about different symbols and motifs, and especially the metaphors that appear. Now, the metaphors in the Scarlet Letter are constantly reiterated, making the whole novel an allegory of something. So, which allegory do you think that is? Think about that, and I hope we'll discuss it in person during your exams. See you.